Hello everyone, and welcome to our session, Controlling the Uncontrollable, Managing Spend in an Inflationary World. What a mouthful of a title that is. My name is James Hogben, and I have the pleasure of presenting this session today with two of our very own Concur customers, Christina and Tori, who you'll meet in a moment. I have been with SAP Concur for 10 years this year, starting my journey in the world of implementation, especially around our travel and our invoice solutions. In 2022, I moved to my current role, overseeing programs for our customer success team. I'm from Melbourne, Australia, and this is my fourth Fusion event. There are two main parts to today's session, and I promise you the first part is short, so don't be put off by seeing the word theory just yet. Yes, there will be some theory, and yes, there will be some statistics, but then we will come to the practical, where you'll get to hear how some of your peers have been managing during these interesting times. Finally, we'll summarise our time together and what we can all take away from the session today together. Where to begin and where to think about this? 2025 was the year where we saw everything that could happen, and 2026 has certainly delivered on keeping that interesting for us now. We've seen geopolitical conflicts, we've seen trade restrictions, and we've seen weaker growth. And that's all before we even look at this year so far. What we do know is there's lots of different viewpoints coming into 2026. There's lots of different areas we can think about. We as SAP Concur have run a lot of roundtables with finance leaders to hear what they think about this world and where we find ourselves. So to get started, we'll talk about a few key trends we're seeing that make this an interesting year ahead and how it makes managing spend that a little bit more important. I'm going to be referencing a study document during today's discussion. You can access a copy of that document in the session resources if you need to access that as well. But first, let's put a human face on this. Let's meet a leader. This is Laura. They are representative of one of the CFOs who we have been speaking with about this year. The representation, of course, doesn't apply a layer of bias. It's merely just a representation. Laura's been in her role for 18 months and has come from within her own organisation to grow into this role. Let's have a discussion about what Laura's thinking about this year and especially what lies ahead. We know that 90% of CFOs like Laura are foreseeing actually that travel budgets will actually rise in 2026. And you might see that this is actually counter to what you would expect to find, because you would think, oh, didn't we kill off most of travel from the need for most travel during the time of the pandemic? And do we really still need to see our increasing travel budgets? If we ask the question, could some of it be replaced by online or offline tools to do instead of travel? We see that that's something that people think about, but we also see that a lot of people still believe strongly that travel plays a role in the organisation. And if there's actually reluctance to go travelling, that actually can hurt the company's bottom line. And as I said before, with virtual meetings and virtual tools, they don't fully replace every aspect of business travel. And we can see many CFOs like Laura still believe that some travel in their organisation can be replaced by virtual tools, but not all of it. In a year where we've all been talking about inflation, and we've all been talking about tariffs and trade, and it's been a very hot topic, it's really interesting to see that some of these figures sit far further down the table than what we think in terms of where they might be influencing company health in 2026. Again, it's that reluctance to go travelling and the geopolitical world in which we find ourselves, which is far further up the scale than what we would expect to find. This also leads nicely to a new and rising trend we've been seeing in many of our customers as well. And for this, we have a brand new term which we've seen for this as well. It's called travel scrimping. What that means, and it may seem insignificant, is just a small cutback in a T&E program. It may be something that seems very small, not very big, not very significant. A single change to a rate cap in one city, a cutback to an allowance in one city. But these add up, and our travellers are the ones who are observing these. We can see 90% of travellers who we surveyed in a recent survey indicated they have seen travel scrimping going on within their own organisation. If we take it to other levels, we can see this comes in a couple of different ways. and it can be very small. It could be very simple, like don't feel pressured to take that as an overnight trip. Take it as a day trip instead. Others can see cutbacks to types of flying in terms of which cabin you get to sit in. Some can see the pressure to take more indirect flights rather than non-stop flights. Most interestingly, I think as well, and a really definite change on the figures from surveys last year or even the year before, 30% have been told no more bleisure applies, and you should not think about bleisure in what you do. Many CFOs, like Laura, have already admitted that this is happening in their organisation. There's also a great many who admit that it has already happened, but that there's also more that they anticipate will happen as well. Now, after this introduction, you might be thinking, James, these are many figures. They're all doom and gloom. You've painted a dooming and glooming section of the world. That's not the intention of sharing the figures that are here, because figures are only part of our story here. There's also what's going on at different parts of the organisation that feeds into this as well. CFOs like Laura are really able to see that business travel, yes, it does cost money, and yes, it is something that is a cost in these times. But if it is spent in the course of creating value, then business travel is in itself of value. It just needs to be shown where that value sits. Comments like the one you're seeing on the screen ring very true to the discussions we hear in our customers every day at the present time. It is really around, don't tell me how you save money on that hotel. Don't tell me how you save money by combining 4 business trips into just one. Tell me the value of what you did on that trip and how it gave a meaningful outcome for us to carry forward from that trip. Those are the questions that we're hearing far more, and especially the question about where the value sits. Now let's step away from theory. I'm sure everyone is very relieved to hear that. Let us move closer to the space of practical. If this is what we hear, and these are the trends we see that are going on, how is this handled within an organisation and an individual organisation? How do people use parts of SAP Concur to help us? To help us find out, we're delighted to be joined by our experts here, who will talk through this with us more. It gives me great pleasure to welcome Cristina Cabrera of Veolia and Tori Hightower from REI. So I'd like to welcome you both, and thank you for stepping up here to join me today as well, and for sharing with the audience as well. I'd like to get things started by asking each of you to talk a little bit about yourself and what it is you do.
Hi, thank you, James. I'm Cristina Cabrera. I'm travel and expense specialist at Veolia, the world leaders in ecological transformation with a focus on the water, waste, and energy sectors. I've been in the organization for 10 years now, and this is my 6th in this role. And I come from Alicante, Spain, and this is my 2nd fusion.
Hello. One of my coworkers once called me the Queen of Concur, and it stuck for whatever reason, although it is not my official job title yet. I also manage REI's corporate card and travel programs, and for anyone who's unfamiliar with REI, we are a member-owned co-op that was started in Seattle in 1938, and we sell a wide variety of outdoor equipment. I'm actually celebrating my 15th year with REI this month, and I live in the Seattle area. This is my 6th fusion.
All hail the Queen. We know and we can see that 2026 has been really eventful already. We've just heard it. We know many companies like yours can feel that stress already. What's the biggest priority each of you has in your Concur program this year?
For me, it's integration. We are currently merging with another part of the organization, so that calls for a 360 analysis of all our procedures and our tools. It's been decided that we are going to coalesce into our existing SAP Concur version instance, so that's what's going to be keeping me busy this year.
We are working on really streamlining all our processes around expenses and travel. In particular, there are some very outdated programs and procedures that predate my time in this role. And my goal is for 2026 to be their final year.
We all love a good procedural cleanup. Definitely worth doing. Following on from that, what's a top concern or a challenge you each want to overcome in the program you have this year?
For me, it's obviously juggling resources, but the one that I want to touch upon is change management. We're going to be rolling out a new T&E policy to all our employees, which introduced quite a few changes. So the challenge is going to be how to drive that behavior without making it too overwhelming for a population that has already gone through so much in the last couple of years.
Adoption of new policies and user compliance is always a focus, but we are also, of course, looking to reduce costs across all travel and expense options.
Always a challenge, always one to think about. I'm glad you mentioned change as well, Christina. That's always a really tough one to get people to follow along with that as well. Following on from the theory that I shared before, I'm sure your CFOs also feel just like Laura. They're also wanting to make some of these achievements and look at some of these numbers. In your programs, how are you controlling costs in your programs today?
So for this year, tight budgets have been set up with an ambition to travel costs by 15%. So in that line, we've introduced a new workflow, which requires manager pre-approval for itineraries that are over a certain threshold or if they are not compliant. And we are also going to be revamping our reporting to increase visibility and facilitate that adherence to the budget.
So we actually updated our mileage policy to cap mileage expenses and require that trips over a certain distance should be in a rental car. We've also implemented a UATP program with our two biggest airline partners to ensure that airfare credits don't expire. Mm-hmm. If you don't know what a UATP is, think of it as a way of paying for flights centrally. We've also worked with our travel management company to use credits on an ongoing basis that were not included in those UATPs and are approaching an expiration date.
Some good advice then as well. It's interesting you both spoke about the cost of travel, and we've seen flights have certainly become more expensive. Most things in travel have become more expensive. We know that for this session, it's certainly something that's on everyone's mind. We know in Concur we get asked an awful lot about preferred suppliers and what preferred suppliers can do for a travel program. I'm curious as to whether either of you has preferred suppliers in your travel program, and how have you set up SAP Concur for this? Someone's really willing to answer this one, I can see.
Yes, as a matter of fact, we have multiple preferred suppliers for travel with airlines, hotels, and rental car options all designated as preferred within Concur. It has been some work to steer our travelers away from their own points plans or frequent traveler programs, but we worked with our procurement team on a document for do's and don'ts for expense and travel, which highlights the importance of using REI's preferred suppliers and not their own. Concur reporting is really helpful in staying on top of this.
For us, it's similar. The travel agency is the main one with a very strong hotel, airlines, and car rental programs. We are also introducing new controls to monitor and reduce leakage this year.
Tori's available to give that answer and share it in more detail. It's clearly a passionate topic for you. Something you deeply care about, which I love seeing there. You've both led me nicely on to talking about the next point. We know a lot of our audience out there is probably eager to hear about compliance and that big nasty C word around how we comply and how we keep people in compliance. Each of you is a really experienced program administrator. Is there a particular way you found that works to have good compliance?
Well, yes, we have. We carefully monitor all expenses by leveraging Concur's report building service to generate custom reports. We are also in the process of implementing Concur Verify to ensure that policy compliance is on target. And we have many, many audit rules in place to stop non-compliance before a report is even submitted. I also lean heavily on our internal team admins to ensure that their teams are aware of these policies and any changes that come down the line. Soon, very soon, I will have a new team member joining me, which is going to allow me to really dig into the analysis opportunities that are offered by that Concur report building service that I love so very much.
Good. We use a lot of services from Concur together with our own audit rules. We use Concur Intelligent Audit and Oversight to monitor compliance. And this year we are going to be changing to Oversight Receipts Analytics, which is going to be able to identify duplicated expenses, AI-generated expenses, and non-compliance with a much higher accuracy rate than our current solution.
Good. So next year we can expect you to talk more about compliance and Tori to introduce the new team member to us all next year. Let's ask another one of those tough questions, and this one's also another C word. Let's talk about change. We both mentioned throughout this some challenges around sharing information and managing change. I'm curious, how do each of you manage information about your Concur program within the organisations you work for? And where do your users go to get that one answer they need?
We try to use a combination of it all. So we do communications and newsletters in collaboration with the communications department. We also have a myriad of resources. So that can be e-learning modules, videos, guides, which is all accessible in our intranet. We also have this service called Concur User Support Desk and our own ticketing system. So no matter where our employees reach out for assistance, they are going to get their questions answered.
Most of our users want to ping me in Teams, but instead of that, I have a beautiful SharePoint site that was built for me by a former teammate, and it has links to the most common tasks and information that our users might need. I used to use custom written documentation with approximately 10,000 screenshots, but keeping up with updates on that was way too much for me. So I switched the links to go directly to how-to documents from Concur, and that's so much easier. We are also working on leveraging an AI option to build out an FAQs or a chatbot feature for users to get answers to simple questions.
Some good tips for our audience out there. And you can always build a SharePoint on Tori's advice if you need help with that. Sure, you still can. So before we go today, let's ask a final question of each of you. We know each of you has a lot of experience in your roles. You've been in your organisations for a while. We know a lot of audiences at Fusion are people who have come to their roles for the first time and might also be attending their very first Fusion as their first interaction with Concur. What advice would you give someone who is brand new to Concur, stepping into a role like yours?
I will say know your Concur configuration to understand what things can be changed, because as new needs arise, it will be much easier to adapt the configuration for those. And also leverage the expertise of your peers. Go to the Concur community, because no matter what you're trying to do, somebody has already tried and they can share with you their tips and best practices.
I would say that they should dig into all of the processes that their users will be asking questions about, because the best way to help is to know how it all works, and you can play around with expenses in a test report. I always have one open, and it doesn't affect anything as long as you don't hit that submit button. You should also know your policy backwards and forwards, and get set up with that reporting service from Concur if you are not a reporting wizard like me. I am not a wizard. It's a huge time saver, and they can suggest reports that you may never have thought of using, or build a custom report to your exact specifications, and you can really, really dig in on those details with that. And to echo Christina, get signed up with Concur Community. It's a huge knowledge base, and Kevin Dorsey will quickly become your new BFF.
Such good advice to the end. For those in our audience who aren't already active on Concur Community, I would also highly recommend it as well. It's good that we've had the opportunity to talk with you today and both hear from you about how your programs are managing in these very interesting times as well. And thank you for volunteering to step up here with me as well. As we draw our session and our time together to a close, let's go back to where we started. We started with some theory. We started with a lot of numbers being thrown at a screen. That's always one way to have a conversation. It's also good to look behind the numbers and look at process and look at what ties that together and how you can get an outcome that meets a number for you, but does it in a human and in a friendly way. And I hope this session's been valuable to you in showing you that there are faces and there are ways you can do this. And it's good to have that consideration as you go forward and as we close out our time together. Look beyond the numbers, look to the process, look to understand that process, and look to then make the best change you can make from doing that. Both our speakers mentioned Concur community. I have as well. Here is yet one more reminder. If you are not already connected on the Concur community, it's a great way to get connected to that peer-to-peer networking and to get those real insights from subject matter experts. It's also a good place to keep up to date on Concur events and also on support resources. There's also the SAP Concur Champions program, which I know Christina is a member of. And as a champion, you have access to a range of opportunities that help you to build your profile and connect with fellow customers around the world. To learn more about these, you can explore with the links, which will be in the session slides shared with you later on. Before you do watch that next session, we would really appreciate the feedback you have on this session today. It helps us to genuinely improve and continue to deliver Fusion sessions that you, our audience, can value and can appreciate. We thank you all for your feedback, and we will make sure we read it and consider it carefully. And now from myself, Christina and Tori, we thank you for the time you've chosen to spend with us today. We hope you enjoy the rest of the event, and thanks again for making the time.